It's an absolutely ridiculous day in the world of Magic the Gathering. Wizards of the Coast has just released a whole new wad of Modern Horizons 3 spoilers. And honestly, they've gone too far with these cards. We've also got some leaks sprinkled in, and you have to see just how ridiculous things have gotten.
Magic.
I am a wizard!
History.
I'm an old wizard!
The Magic Historian.
My bones hurt. Greetings! Owners of fine luxury cardboard rectangles, my friends. I hope the day finds you well because we have gathered for another installment of Mega Magic News. This is the Modern Horizons 3 Ridiculousness Edition because today's spoilers and leaks have a bunch of absolutely ridiculous cards. Not only are there insanely powerful cards, but there is one card that drives me absolutely crazy. I totally hate it. So, let's not waste any time. Let's go look at some Magic cards. We're starting out our cavalcade of ridiculous today with the Crabomination, which is a really fun concept, but also very ridiculous. 2 black and 4 for a 5/5 Crab Demon. And when it enters the battlefield, target opponent exiles the top card of their library, a card at random from their graveyard, and a card at random from their hand. You may cast a spell from among these cards exiled this way without paying its mana cost. So you get one free spell randomly, either from the top of their library, from their graveyard, or their hand, depending on what you want to do. I like the fact that they included the graveyard and the library because with the casting cost this guy has, it's going to be difficult to make sure your opponent has cards in their hand. However, he does have Emerge from Artifact as well, where you can pay 2 black and 5 reduced by the cost of the artifact that you sacrifice. So this guy is ridiculous because it's a demon crab that lives inside an artifact that you have. So you could just summon up any old gizmo, a weird clock, a monocle, some magical artifact, and all of a sudden a big old crab demon bursts forth out of it and is like, this is my shell now. I live in it. Also, I'm about to wreck your opponent's mind and give you magical power. Like, it is a very fun concept. And you can see the crazy glyphs that are on the Crabomination shell. Everything about this card is fun. The artwork is awesome. It honestly feels like a rock that was sitting on the beach that just birthed out this crab demon. But ultimately, this is a ridiculous and fun card. Moving on, we've got Shifting Woodland. So this is a land. When it enters the battlefield, it's tapped unless you already have a forest, taps for a green. So this is part of the cycle that we've seen across all 5 colors. We have multiple cards from this cycle in today's video. So it's got Delirium, pay 2 green and 2. Shifting Woodland becomes a copy of target permanent card in your graveyard until end of turn. Activate only if there are 4 more card types among cards in your graveyard. So this one's ridiculous to me, first of all, because its ability lets you go, yo, any permanent in my graveyard, I can just have again. And it's not like you have to cast it, right? You can just put this out as a land and boom, transform it into that thing. All right, so it is until end of turn. So you can keep swapping it up into different permanents. Obviously, you do have to meet the conditions for Delirium, which is having 4 different card types in your graveyard, so instant, sorcery, artifact, whatever. So you're not always going to get to use its ability, but it feels ridiculous in its versatility, but also from a flavor perspective. I don't know what this artwork is originally supposed to be, but you can see there are tons of symbols of Avacyn basically hammered onto every tree here. And normally those are used to repel werewolves, vampires, demons, that sort of thing. So whatever this was supposed to be, I see a shovel where maybe something's buried here and all these symbols are supposed to stop the dead from coming back to life. So it is ridiculous to me that this artwork is supposed to mean, yo, this forest, this land can change into any permanent. It doesn't have a proper connection, like flavor-wise, and it feels pretty ridiculous to expect that, hey, this forest can turn into a goat. Really? How? Well, you know the holy symbols of Avacyn? Uh-huh. We nailed them to trees. Okay, so how can it turn into a goat? Don't worry about it, man. It's really cool. I mean, obviously, I love the card from a play perspective and will absolutely use it, but it is a ridiculous flavor concept. Moving on. We've got Eldrazi Linebreaker, a red, a colorless, and one for a 3/3 devoid with trample, and has the crazy, ridiculous ability at the beginning of combat on your turn, target creature you control gains haste and +X+0 until end of turn, where X is the number of Eldrazi you control. So this is going to count all your little scions, all your little spawn donks, and we've seen there are tons of cards that generate those. And just all by himself, right? Let's say he's the only Eldrazi you have out. He's still going to give your new creature +1 power and haste. And most likely you're playing an Eldrazi deck. So you're going to have multiple Eldrazi out. I expect at bare minimum, this thing's going to give +3, +4 power and haste. So when you put out your gigantic Eldrazi, you can swing in with them immediately, which is ridiculous. Moving on. We've got Fanatic of Ronus. 1 green and 1 for a 1/4 with the ability tap to add a green, but it's also got Ferocious. So you can tap it to add 4 green, which is a ridiculous amount of mana. Activate only if you control a creature with power 4 or greater. I mean, what's that? There's the one card from Theros Beyond Death. It's 1 green and 1. It's like some kind of dryad. And basically it taps for a green, but if you control a creature that has 4 power or greater, then instead it taps for 2 mana. This taps for 4 green, which is absolutely nuts. And it's got Eternalize. 2 green and 2. If it's in your graveyard, you exile it, you make a token that's a copy of it, except it's a 4/4. So when it's eternalized, it automatically taps for 4 green. Like, this is bonkers. It's a mana accelerator that can greatly ramp you depending on what you have going on, and it can come back. On top of that, it features the amazing concept of the Eternals from the Amonkhet block, where basically Nicol Bolas took the whole world of Amonkhet, turned it around to his purposes, where it's like, I'm going to use you to create my eternal super soldiers by subverting your entire religious cycle. So I find the Eternals to be really cool. And as an added note of ridiculousness, this guy is a giant snake druid, right? His staff has a snake head on it, which feels really silly to me. It's like if somebody was just walking around with the staff with a human head on the end of it. You know, I get that they're going for the whole snake concept. He's at the snake temple. You got the snake stairway. You got the snake head. You got the snake statue. All of it. You got a bunch of snakes on the steps. Like, it's heavy with the snake concept, but it is funny to me that he just has a staff head that mimics his head. I mean, I guess you could say, well, actually, it's supposed to be Ronus's head, but there's just something about a creature that has its own head on a stick, right? It becomes really obviously ridiculous when you compare it to humans specifically. Moving on, this guy's powerful. Moving on, we've got Monumental Henge with a Monumental Reflection covering obviously part of the name. This is a leak instead of an actual spoiled card, right? So this is the white one in the cycle that I was talking about when we looked at the Greenland. So this one comes into play tapped unless you have a plains, taps for a white mana, 2 white and tap it. Look at the top 5 cards of your library. You may reveal a historic card from among them and put it into your hand. Artifacts, legendary creatures, sagas, all count for this. So this is really just essentially going to be a bunch of free card draw that you can repeat turn after turn. Yeah, it does cost 4 mana to do, but if you're not doing other stuff with your land, pretty sweet, right? Like, that can get ridiculous over time as you draw a bunch of cards. So the flavor concept of it is literally just a bunch of rocks kicking around. You got a henge. It really kind of looks like either broken Nicol Bolas horns or maybe a broken Phyrexian monument. I'm not 100% sure. So it's supposed to be a henge that's made out of a monument. It all ties together half decently, but the artwork's not too exciting, let's be real. Moving on, we've got Birthing Ritual. This is a wild one. It is absolutely ridiculous. 1 green and 1 for an enchantment that says, at the beginning of your end step, if you control a creature, look at the top 7 cards of your library. Then you can sacrifice a creature. If you do, put a creature card with mana value X or less from among those cards onto the battlefield, where X is 1 plus the sacrifice creature's mana value, and then you put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. This is like Birthing Pod and like Food Chain almost kind of crammed together a little bit. It feels like it's got elements of what feels like both of them in a way. So the fact that it doesn't specifically require you to get a creature of X plus 1, because a lot of these things that incrementally move upwards will go, it has to be exact. Like the Search for Greatness, that 1 green enchantment, you specifically had to get a permanent that cost exactly 1 more than permanents you already have. But this will let you get any creature that is 1 casting cost greater than the dude you sacrifice, all the way down to 0. So you can just have this ridiculous chain of creatures being birthed out, or you could have some bigger dude burst out of another guy's body. I just got birthed out of a goat. But then you could have the reverse, where a giant dragon just has this goat birthed out of him. It's such a funky concept. But the power level on this card is absolutely insane. I am 100% targeting this as a card for my queue. The artwork is pretty wild as well. You have some crazy beast. It looks like the mother guarding over its weak, sad little kid. Mama, they called me names at school. And it's like, oh, I'll get them for you, Billy. Don't worry. But then there's also like another creature that looks like it's kind of falling off of its horns. That's where it gets really weird, right? You just go, okay, let me follow the sinuous line of the horn. And is that another dude just like falling off of you? It looks like he's got like super long sloth arms reaching up to the sky, but then you're like, wait, is that mana pouring in? Like, what is going on in this artwork? It is nuts. Moving on. We've got this ridiculousness right here caused me to rant a bunch yesterday. There is a live stream up on my archive channel where I have gone into my distaste for this. This is honestly the reason that I came up with the whole ridiculous concept for this video. I'm like, I'm going to talk about a bunch of ridiculous spoils and leaks. This one is ridiculous in a way that I do not like. So, 1 green and 2 for an instant that says, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. Then each modified creature you control deals damage equal to its power to target creature you don't control. And modified creatures are anybody who has an equipment, anybody who is has an aura on it, or has any kind of counters on it. So just by putting a +1/+1 counter on one of your guys, you're going to have at least 1 modified creature. And I do like the pile-on nature of this card, where you could theoretically have all of your guys combining together to smash one of their creatures. Because sometimes they'll have a giganto creature, and one little dude fighting it isn't enough, right? If they put out a huge Eldrazi, being able to have your guys swarm up and pound on them, that works from like a gameplay perspective in terms of what you need to take it down. But from a flavor perspective, I really hate this card, bro. The idea of a gorilla like leg locking a dinosaur while another gorilla jumps from off the top ropes, like coming in with the steel chair, the steel elbow, bam, oh, the humanity of it. Like, the WWF nature of this absolutely has to be artwork they had kicking around from an unset, because I couldn't see this fitting into any regular Magic set. This doesn't feel like a Magic spell. Remember, we're planeswalkers battling with each other, and we're casting massive fireballs and lightning and all this insanity at each other. I cast a gorilla grabs your buddy's legs while another gorilla jumps on him. Like, this isn't a spell. Like, this isn't a spell. And it's just such a stupid meme. Like, I hate it. I get that people will enjoy this, and it's fine if you enjoy it. But for me, I hate that Magic just seems to be going more and more with it's okay to have jokes here and there. I'm not against that. Obviously, I love humor, but it just feels wrong. It's jarring. It doesn't fit with you. We have the Eldrazi, gigantic world-shaking destructive beasts. Oh yeah, well I've one of my goats put Kozilek in a leg lock while 4 other guys go, I'm gonna elbow drop you. And it's like, how is this Magic? How is this a magical spell? This is too ridiculous in the wrong way, right? Obviously, this is a divisive card. Some people are going to love it, but to me, this is emblematic of how Wizards really doesn't care anymore about making things cohesive and really like world building. This is nonsense. Anyways, I like I said, I ranted a bunch in a live stream. I'll link it at the end so you can go and check it out because I could yell about this card for a long time. Moving on, we got Nadu, the Winged Wisdom. If I play this guy, I will say Nadu when I cast him, because that's just a silly. I love this card. I love it. It's ridiculous. I love that he's like, I'm going to swing down by the waters and drift water blastings from my hands like a reverse Spider-Man. 1 blue, 1 green, and 1 for a 3/4 flyer. Man, creatures really have become more powerful over time. Like those stats. Anyways. Creatures you control have, whenever this creature becomes the target of a spell or ability, reveal the top card of your library. If it's a land card, put it onto the battlefield, and otherwise, put it into your hand. This ability triggers only twice each turn. It's interesting to me that it's only twice each turn. It's ridiculous to me that it will straight up put lands out, let you draw the cards, and it's not specifically your opponent's spells or abilities. If you target your own guys, you get this as well. I really, really do like the artwork. I find that this setting here is idyllic. Clearly, this has got to be on Amonkhet. All the lily pads on the water. This guy gracefully flying down across the water while he's blasting water. I don't know what the water... Like, I wonder what originally this guy was supposed to be, because for this set, they're using repurposed artwork. And I would like to know the initial concept behind this guy, because the artwork really captivates my imagination. Anyways, that's enough of Nad and you. Let's move on. We got Copy Crook, which sounds like the name of a guy who's going to steal your breakfast cereal. Watch out, it's the Copy Crook. He's going to take your wafer goose. 2 blue and 2 for a shape-shifting rogue. You may have him enter the battlefield as a copy of any creature, except he has, whenever this creature attacks, it connives, which lets you draw a card, then discard a card. If you pitched a non-land card, put a +1/+1 counter on them. Clones have come a long way. Back in my day, you'd pay 4 mana to get to copy a creature and consider that good enough, although you'd be wishing for a Vesuvan doppelganger, let's be real. Either way, this is a fun concept. You can see that he has clearly copied some kind of, well, honestly, it looks like one of the D&D Mind Flayers, right? That's the vibe that it's got. He's in, there's just something about the suit he's wearing, like he's creeping around on Capanna, like he's got pinstripe suit pants. I do like the blue glow that's coming out below the pant cuff, though, like the leg of it. That is a nice little attention to detail. So it kind of feels like an illusionary mind flare. This is just, hey, I shapeshifted into this form, and now I'm creeping around. Don't want anybody to catch me. The flavor text says, the best hiding places are other people. That feels unwieldy. I gotta hide my watch inside you like this is Pulp Fiction. Well, that's a random reference. Okay, let us move on to the next card. This is Horrid Shadow Spinner. 1 black, 1 blue, and 1 for a 2/3 with lifelink. Whenever Horrid Shadow Spinner attacks, you may draw cards equal to its power. If you do, discard that many cards. So this to me is ridiculous on multiple levels. First of all, it's a horror that basically drains life from whoever, right? So it's like, okay, I'm going to hit you, I'm going to pull life out of you. That's not that horrific, but the really horrific part is that when it attacks, you can draw cards equal to its power, but if you do discard that many cards, that means you have to let this horrific thing reach into your mind, channel into your mind, and you've got this burst of knowledge that happens as a result of it. But then afterwards, it feeds on your mind. I would not want this thing sinking its claws through my flesh into my brain. Like, that's nuts. That is nuts. I really do like the artwork, though. It feels like it's bigger than a 2/3. It's really, really cool looking. And I actually like the flavor text as well, tying into the whole Kithkins from Lorwyn. The daylight's done. The nightmare's spun. It crawls off the loom and into your room. So that's a Kithkin child's rhyme. And the question is this from the Kithkin of the light side of Lorwyn or the dark side of Lorwyn? Because that plane has, or had, doesn't really have it anymore, a night and day cycle that would last hundreds of years based on the Great Aurora. So this is some incredibly evocative artwork that, in a way, I wish had made it onto like a good rare or something like that. Because I don't know how much play this will actually see overall. It feels like a limited card to me, but man, is it cool. Then we've got Ugin's Binding. This card is ultra dumb, ridiculous nonsense. For real. This is insane. 1 blue and 2 for an instant with Devoid, so it's colorless. Return target non-land permanent you don't control to its owner's hand. So it's 3 mana for bounce, and you go, where's the ridiculousness? Why is this mythic? And then you read the rest of it and go, you're out of your mind, Wizards. What are you doing? Whenever you cast a colorless spell with mana value 7 or greater, you may exile Ugin's Binding from your graveyard. So if you have multiple copies, you can just choose to exile one. This does not happen automatically. And so when you exile it, return each non-land permanent you don't control to its owner's hand. Like Cyclonic Rift wasn't good enough? Cyclonic Rift wasn't good enough? Right? Oh, I can overload this and bounce all your stuff. Now it's just a side effect. Oh, as a side effect of casting a colorless spell that costs 7 or greater, I can just bounce everything that you guys have on the board. It's insane. It's insane. This concept is absolutely nuts. Like, the power level of this really just left me shaking my head for a considerable amount of time going, what is going on? They're power creeping this game like crazy. I mean, how are you not going to play with this card, right? Bro, I'll toss a copy in my cube because it's so crazy. It's just going to steal games out of nowhere. I cast a gigantic guy. Oh, and by the way, as a side effect, I just get rid of a card in my graveyard that I already used to steal tempo from you earlier, and I bounce all your crap. Eat a fat bag, bro. Like, man, this is nuts. The artwork is awesome. Ugin's Binding blasting out all of these Hedrons. Like, yo, the Hedrons were originally created by Nahiri using her lithomancy magic, right? And then Ugin basically infused them with magic. That was the idea. So he can't just make a million of them and blast him out of his eye like a Sharingan eye in Naruto or anything like that. But the artwork is super evocative. It's not, it's got to be him pushing the Hedrons out, right? They're not all being pulled into his eye. So I guess the idea is that when you exile it from your graveyard, that's a bunch of Hedrons basically just dealing with all your opponent's stuff and putting them in stasis, which is like putting them back in their hands, and so they got to recast them. It's insane, man. This is I can't get over how ridiculous this is. I really can't. It's so nuts. But anyways, let's move on to the next card. Mindless Conscription. 1 black and 2 for an enchantment that says when it enters the battlefield and whenever you draw your 3rd card each turn, amass zombies 3. So this one is ridiculous from the flavor perspective. From a power perspective, paying 3 mana for a 3/3 zombie token is jank. And the fact that you have to draw 3 cards in a turn to be able to make it bigger is also jank. But look at the artwork. Look at what's going on here. It's literally raining zombies from like this giant pile. You can see this massive swarm of carrion birds floating. Like, if you think vultures normally have a good time, look at this. They're like, oh, look at so much food to eat. But then it gets up and moves around like, bro, I want to eat this pile of garbage. So you have these zombies that are all mindlessly being brought together to create this gigantic flailing tower of undead zombies. Like, in the middle, that's the amassed 3 token, but it's got to be like an amassed 9 token at least, because look at the size of it. Look at how many zombies are a part of it. And I love that some of the zombies are literally just falling off of the pile. Like, if you look up at the top, you've got the birds, but then right below them, you can see a couple of zombies plummeting through the air. And you can also see a zombie on the side at the bottom. If you look down, like right around here on the side of the pile, you can see him climbing up, right? Like, this would be an undulating mass of groaning zombies. Like, it is a horrific concept. Imagine that. It's all moving as one, just kind of ambling towards you. It almost would like move, I imagine, like a giant jerky ooze, right? And as it's moving, it's just dropping zombies off. But that's not going to be enough to save you because there's hundreds in there and they're still climbing up and adding to it. Like, the flavor on this is awesome. Just this endless wave of zombies being forced into it. So, I don't know. With the draw 3 cards, I do like the fact that in the foreground of the artwork, you can see 3 zombies specifically that have this necrotic magic flowing around their feet like it's gonna pull them in. So I guess as a side effect of drawing this power into your mind, you can put these tendrils on the zombies that pull them like whip quick into the pile so it instantly grows, right? So the 3 zombies amass 3, all connected by magic, is a nice little nod to the mechanic of the card, right? And then we've got Kozilek's Commandment. Normally, I don't put non-English cards in the spoiler video. So I have a list of what this does. How it works is it's 2 colorless and X, right? And you get to choose 2. So target player creates X01 Eldrazi spawns that you can sack for colorless mana, or target player scries X, then draws a card, or exile target creature with mana value of X or less, or exile up to X target cards from a graveyard. So this thing is nuts. You can get rid of your opponent's biggest creature while making a bunch of little donks, or you can mess up graveyard strategies, or you can dig super deep into your deck and draw the best card off of it. It's got a lot of versatility, and it is pretty wild. I mean, you can see the element of Kozilek in the background with the craziness, and then in the front you can see Hedron just getting completely obliterated. So that honestly doesn't really tie up with the mechanics of the card anywhere, because you're getting rid of a creature with like it gets rid of creatures and cards from graveyards. So yeah, I mean, I guess it could be getting rid of a inert Hedron that's not working anymore, but ultimately the flavor on this card is muddy. The artwork is just an explosion of whatever, so it doesn't really tie the best that way, but overall what the card can do, it's got a lot of versatility to it, right? So my friends, that wraps up all the spoilers. If you want to hear me rant about how much I hate that one card, live stream link up here on the screen from last night's stream. I'll be doing a stream tonight over on my other Hatcher channel, so you're welcome to come by and hang out if you want to. Other than that, just a big shout out to my patrons. Thank you very much for financially supporting my channel. You guys rule, and I will see you all, my friends, either in tonight's live stream or in the next video.